It was the result we probably thought would happen but hoped wouldn't happen at the Accu Stadium on Tuesday night when the town failed to beat 10-man Huddersfield Town, in fact, ending up losing 1-0 on a dismal night of football. Alongside me to look back on it, to reflect exactly where we are and to look ahead to the Blackpool game is the Lutonian journalist, James Cunliffe. Jimbo, what is it they say about Groundhog Day? Far too many of them.
Well, it seems that way. I mean, we've repeated ourselves a lot of the time, but I think we'll try and analyse this, won't we?
Yes, we will, and we'll do that right after this intro. Hello, everyone. Welcome along to another episode of the Luton Town Supporters Trust podcast, the award-winning, longest-running Luton Town podcast. As ever, the show is in association with Solid, providing opportunities, provisions and assistance so our academy can fulfil their potential. As I mentioned before the intro, we are going to look very quickly back at Huddersfield versus Luton. We're going to talk about where we're at and the bigger picture. And we're going to look ahead to the Blackpool game on Saturday, all in one podcast, as we alluded to last time out. So this might be a slightly longer podcast than what we normally send out to you, but it will be the only one you get prior to that Blackpool game. And Jimbo's with me, as always. Let's do game first, Jimbo. I've done my instant reaction, an angrier instant reaction than what I like to record, but sometimes, you can't escape those feelings. How did you feel about it?
We all saw the same game that you did, mate. I mean, let's be clear. Tuesday night was not good enough. There's no soft landing for it. There's no nuance to it. There's no caveats to it. It was not good enough. You cannot play for an hour against 10 men and have one shot and lose the game. Regardless of how much of a worldie that goal was and a freak goal, there was enough time to do something in that game, and they didn't. And it's not good enough.
No, it wasn't good enough. There aren't many positives from last night. We're recording this Wednesday night, as always. One positive was that Jack seemed to acknowledge at the end that it wasn't good enough in all of the interviews that he did, unlike on Saturday, for example, where he didn't seem to see a game that I was watching for the most part. This night started badly at 6:30. And right the way through till about 10 o'clock, it continued getting progressively worse, Jimbo. That team sheet came out, lots of changes. Change of formation. Come on to the change of formation in a minute. But just the personnel that were there, that has to be the smallest Luton team I've ever seen represent us in a competitive game of football. I mean, if you went to an under-16s game, you'd see a taller team than that, I reckon. I could not believe the lack of height. This is League One football. You mentioned that Barcelona side with Xavi and Iniesta in the last podcast. We're not that. We're not.
Very evidently. Yeah. The thing is, when we've got battered, and I count Tuesday night as a battering, regardless of what the scoreline was, we've been bullied. Because that's what this division is. If they were better technically or skill-wise or any of that, they'd be higher up the divisions. They're athletic, they're tough, and they'll bully you. And Plymouth did it. And so did Huddersfield.
Yeah, in defence of Jack, he went 3-4-3, which was the formation that worked really well against a back three at Stockport. I don't necessarily have an issue with that, but I think everyone has an issue with having gone to Plymouth on Saturday and then made the time and effort to go to Huddersfield on a Tuesday night to go and watch Jordan Clark playing a false nine. I think plenty of people have an issue with that. Had it have been Gideon Kodjia, okay, maybe you can see that. We've called for Kodjia to play through the middle a few times, but
I thought it was when I looked at the team sheet.
Yeah.
And then to see Clark up there, I don't understand that thinking whatsoever.
No.
I mean, he's not a prolific marksman anyway.
No.
Kodjia's got 10 goals. He's been talked of as he possibly could play a central role, and that's the assumption that I made. So when you see Clark there, I don't understand that. That's baffling to me. With Wells on the bench, Yates nowhere to be seen, I mean, Al Hamidi, that's obvious he's going to start on the bench when he first comes back, but I can't explain that one.
No. Of course, the big difference between Stockport and Huddersfield in terms of the team selection was at Stockport we had Izzy Jones bombing past Jake Richards, Nigel Longwake. I mean, he don't even get within 20 yards of Jake Richards, let alone bomb past him. So when Richards goes down the line, there's no one, the idea is that the ball goes to Izzy Jones as happened at Stockport, and then Richards would get in the middle. Or the ball goes over the other side, Richards get in the middle. He scored the opening goal at Stockport, didn't he? Not the case last night. It just didn't happen. Nothing really happened last night at all from a Luton perspective. In fact, the game was nothing until 29th minute out of the blue. A referee flashes a red card. Now, I put it in the instant reaction. I'm of an era, of an age that when football was football, that would get laughed at and don't do it again and move on. In 2026, and Huddersfield fans can moan all they like about it. In 2026, it's a red card. Michael Keane got a red card for doing exactly the same thing against Wolves a couple of 3 weeks ago. It is a red card. It's not a red card though, is it? It's just not. I mean, as soon as he realised he had Casey Palmer's hair, he let go of it. He's barely pulled him out of his stride. But when he's flashed the red card, and as I say, by the letter of the law, the referee's right to flash the red card, you're thinking then, thank F for that, because this is a season-defining game. Jack referenced it in the build-up to it, that he challenged his players to show that on the road they can prove they've got what it takes for promotion. We've just been given the most almighty leg up we can possibly be given. Huddersfield have shown little to nothing, 11v11. Crack on now, let's go and get the job done. Oh dear.
It should have been. It should have been, but we've got previous. We can't play against 10 men. We've lost against a 10-man team this season already. We've been terrible against it for a number of years. It doesn't serve to help us. And it didn't, again. I mean, yes, after the sending off, and it is letter of the law, so I've got no complaints with it really on that regard. It's, if you want to complain about the letter of the law, fair dues. But then, 15 minutes and change before half time, and they pressed reasonably well, tried to break through, just weren't getting through, which obviously is one of the other themes of the night. Casey Palmer got on the ball a lot, did quite well. I was reasonably impressed with him. Doesn't really matter now, does it? I mean, that's not what the context of the game is. And then it went to hell 5 minutes into the second half.
We should be talking about a Casey Palmer midfield, if not masterclass, really positive performance. We should be. Luton should have won the game. He would have been instrumental to everything that we did in the game. His partnership alongside Liam Walsh in the centre of the park has got fruits of labour. But as Jimbo said, it's not the story. I don't really get the Huddersfield fans booing him. He didn't send him off. It's just the way it is. And that was a bit silly. Yeah, 15 minutes between between that sending off and they played with 9 men for about 60 seconds, didn't they? Because the striker had whatever muscle he's pulled in a race with Ted Mengi, he hadn't had his replacement Charles come on yet. He came on shortly after the red card. 15 minutes against 10 men. Never really looked through. There was a passage of play where we played some nice intricate football and the ball went out to Nigel Longwake, and if you thought he was going to repeat the Reading shot, you were sadly mistaken. He ended up at the back of the top tier of the stand, and
but it was all comfortable in front of Huddersfield. Comfortable for Huddersfield, I mean.
Yep.
It was all in front of them. There's no penetration. There's no runners beyond. There's nobody taking anyone on. It's pass, sideways pass, backwards. Boring stuff.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Again, I referenced that in the reaction. The number of passes amongst our back three, goalkeeper and defensive midfielder last night against 10 men for 67 minutes if you include the injury time. In the second half, 70 if you include the 3 minutes in the first half. Not that anything happened in that. It's not good enough, is it? Listen, there's a lot of angry fans. There is absolutely,
and they're right to be angry.
Absolutely right to be angry. They're well within their rights to be angry. Whether that's being directed at the right people, I don't know, but there was a lot of anger towards Jack Wilshere last night in the stands, and he did not cover himself in glory last night. The team selection didn't start him off on the right foot. How there was not a substitution at half-time, I have absolutely no idea. We started that second half with 3 centre-halves up against 1 striker, and that striker barely went past the halfway line because they've retreated because they don't want to lose the game, and if they win the game, well, they've struck the lottery. They did strike the lottery. If we need 3 centre-halves to mark 1 striker who wasn't even the striker who started the game, striker who started the game went off injured, his strike partner got sent off, so it's at least their third choice striker who's on the pitch, and we need 3 centre-halves to deal with that. I'm sorry, but we have got serious problems if that is the case. It was crying out for Shayden Morris and a striker, preferably Ali Al-Hamadi. Now, if the bigwigs are telling you that he can't do 45 minutes straight back from injury, then at least Nakeem Wells right on at half-time and go at them. Now, Jack mentioned in his post-match interview that they said at half-time about getting men on the last line. Well, who were we meant to get on the last line, Jack? Because there wasn't a striker on there. Cohen Bramwell was the quickest person that you had on there. And how he can't go past Gooch, who's been around the game for God knows how long, he must have had him for pace. But the problem is Bramwell's been out of the team and he looks like a guy who's formed rust. Ball just goes over his feet, bounces off of him. Whereas when we were going under that good run towards the end of December, everything good was coming through him. And that's the problem with this tinky-tacky tinkering all the time. People get into a rhythm and then they come out of a rhythm. And then when you call on them again, they've lost their rhythm and they don't look good enough. And it wasn't good enough. And then, of course, the one thing that we couldn't do was concede a goal. You cannot lose that game of football from the moment Alfie May got sent off.
Mm.
If you draw the game of football, you go home thinking you've lost it. You cannot lose it. And the goal is just pathetic. I called it that. Mads Andersen's pass, right? Why we keep on messing about with it at the back? They're not even, if they're pressing us and we've got to move the ball to get it away from a striker, then fair enough. There was no press from Huddersfield from the moment that the red card happened. There was no one to press them. They'd all retreated into a bank of 5, a bank of 3, and then 1 in front of them. Often, one of them 3 went back even further and made it a 6. Why we have to do that? Why does Mengi have to pass it to Mads Andersen in the first place? Carry it forward, Tedden. You've got 20 yards. You're good. You're the one defender that was playing last night that's good on the ball. Carry it forward. Commit someone. Finally get them out of their range. We had this against Rotherham. And they had 11 men. We had it against Rotherham. And you're right to reference our record against 10 men. We've played against it 4 times this season. The only time we've won was at Stockport, and it was 3-0 when he got sent off at the time. The other 2 times, Bolton we didn't beat, and Plymouth we lost 3-2 to. It's not good. But he doesn't. He passes it to Mads Andersen, who for some reason, I don't know if he's auditioning for Strictly Come Dancing, but he goes and does a pirouette when he receives the ball. So he turns back on his own goal before turning round again. But as he turns back on his goal, Keeley must think that the ball's coming in his direction because he comes off of his line a little bit to receive a pass, which doesn't come. Then he passed, I presume he passed it to Liam Walsh, but he passed it nowhere near Liam Walsh. And then bang, you got to put your hands up. It's an absolute worldie of a strike. But we've literally just, Stevie Wonder could telegraph that pass. He literally stared at it and then passed it. And then there he is. Free shot on goal because Keeley's come out of his goal to receive a pass that he wasn't getting.
I know everyone's highlighting all that stuff, and it's all true, but you still can't legislate for an absolute worldie strike like that. I mean, it's like, you can't concede against that team. They were going to low block the situation anyway because they thought they'd play for a point. And to hit that, they couldn't believe their luck. And also, then Luton go, what the hell? And then they are shell-shocked, and they were. And then there's no way back. And as soon as it lobbed Keeley, you knew what was going to come. We saw it play out, and it felt like it played out in horrendous slow motion. And we got all we deserved because they had the better chances. They hit the crossbar. In those circumstances, probably they're hoping for a set piece or something. Well, they got the slice of fortune of a goal of the season contender. But then they still had the better chances. We had one chance which, maybe a striker puts away, but one shot on goal. It's not good enough.
No, it's not good enough. No, as I tried to say, but I was beginning to ramble in instant reaction. If you turned the game on after 50 minutes and said one team's got 10 men, one team's got 11, you'd have bet your bottom dollar that Luton were the team that had 10. Huddersfield had the team that had 11. They would have, if a second goal was scored last night, Huddersfield were the team who were going to score it. The header off. Why can we not defend a set piece? Why can we not defend? Then they weren't even, by the time all of the changes had happened, because they did make a halftime substitution. Ironically, they brought on someone with similarly long hair to Casey Palmer, which made me chuckle. They weren't a particularly tall team, bar for the two centre-backs by that time. Yeah, they still won that header that clipped the crossbar. And there was another one that I couldn't see if Kearley saved it or it just narrowly went over the crossbar. I was losing the will to live and getting more and more angry with every passing moment of what I was watching. But why can't we win the first contact on a corner or free kick into our box? I referenced the last 5 goals we conceded in the last podcast. Well, we nearly and should have done likewise again last night.
Well, who used to do that in the old days? James Collins, Adebayo, 2 tall strikers. We've got a tall striker. So, and you referenced at the beginning how small the team was. That seems a bona fide way that teams can score against us, and we can't cope.
Well, we're going to need to cope. We're going to need to cope big time. Forget promotion. Promotion's gone. There is no way without significant reinforcements over the next 5 days, and we'll come on to the transfer window in a minute. There is no way this team's getting promoted. Doesn't have the kahunas to go away from home and get anywhere near the points that it needs to have to get them. So just to be competitive, we've got to sort this set piece issue out at the back. There is no dominance in that defence at all. That goal from Mads Andersen was coming on Saturday. He nearly got himself into trouble on Saturday, and then he went on the craziest, maziest run I've ever seen in my life, to the point that having got up at 4:30, I thought I was hallucinating. But he did. He got out of trouble. Then there was that issue last night where he ended up getting a yellow card, which was just pathetic. Put your foot through the ball, get rid of it. We're against 10 men. He got a yellow card. And then I think Jack called it a lapse of concentration. Well, if that's a lapse of concentration and you're true to your word, Jack, then Mads Andersen is not in our starting 11 on Saturday, because Chris Makosso and Lamine Fane have both been called out for similar.
Yeah. But then in the post-match, he also did say that he thinks there's a case that Mads Andersen's one of his most important players since he's been there. So you do the math.
Well, I'll do the math, and the math tells me that that's a cry for I need a dominant defender in the next 5 days at Sharpish. That's the math I'm doing.
Well, if that's the math you're doing, then maybe that's the math. Math. We're not American. Maths that you need to do for why there was no striker on the pitch. Maybe that's what that is.
Absolutely. I believe it is, yeah. 100% I believe it is. The only thing you would say about no striker on the pitch is clearly he's had enough of Naki Wells going clean through on goal and lifting a ball straight into the goalkeeper's lap, a la the 2 times he's gone straight through on goal and done it. Hence why he refused to put him on the pitch again yesterday until he really, really had to. Listen, half an hour to go, those 2 changes that were so obvious were made. And then on came Ali Al-Hamadi a little bit later on, and then as a last chuck of the dice, Emilio Lawrence. I mean, we might have gone down to 10 men at that point. He was only on pitch 5 minutes and bottled 2 50-50 challenges. And Lamine Fane, what are we now? 8 o'clock on Wednesday night? We could still be playing there now. Luton aren't scoring. That's how pathetic it was. And I mean, you started the podcast, Jimbo, by saying it's not good enough. And it isn't good enough. And how anyone can suggest that it is good enough is beyond me. Now, to be fair, they haven't suggested that. But if changes aren't made over the next 5 days, that will say to me that it is good enough, because this team needs help.
The season is over. Let's be honest about that. You pointed out with very good evidence and statistics, historical evidence in the previous podcast, exactly the number of games that Luton need to win just to scrape into the top 6 based on previous seasons. We pretty much need to win half of our games.
More than 10 out of 18 now.
Yeah, okay. So that means we have to be perfect at home, which ain't going to be. And somehow we have to find results on the road which don't look possible. So the season is over. I thought the only way that anything might improve might be the transfer window. That's not going to solve it anymore. I mean, even Jack Wilshere is saying that in his post-match that's not going to be the solve all, the cure to all this. So the season is done. What we can do, I suppose, is use this transfer window to embed some players that have half a season to get used to something for next season. That's all we can do. It's not a palatable situation to anybody, but I think that's the reality.
Yeah, I do too. I think we are, if we're not in that situation just purely because of the amount of games that are left right now, in 5 or 6 games' time, we will be in the situation when John Still arrived at this football club and no one actually came out and said that he sacked the 10 or 12 games off that he had, but he didn't even turn up to one of them. But he basically did, didn't he? And that's fine, but then next season you have to tear it up. John Still did tear it up to all the conference and you won. That's the only way now. If help isn't coming in the next 5 days, and there isn't going to be enough help to sort this team out, this team, it needs leadership, it needs quality, it needs legs, it needs organisation. It needs so much, and you're not going to get that in 5 days when you've not had it in 28 days. So yeah, we have to make sure that middle weekend in August when League One starts, or even the week before when the Carabao Cup starts. We haven't referenced that in this podcast before, but they're doing the first round of the Carabao Cup the week before the season starts next year because of the World Cup. We have to be ready to go. None of this going to Slovenia and starting in October nonsense. It has to go from the first week in August, or the next 5 days have to be bloody strong. And let's hope we do, because no one will go and watch this team away from home if this is all we're seeing. No one. And everyone who was there yesterday, particularly if you were there on Saturday as well, you deserve so much better. We've played 3 away games in 2026. Twice to Devon, once to middle of Yorkshire. And I think I'm right in saying we've put a grand total of 4 shots on target on the board. No goals, 4 shots on target, and we've lost every game 1-0.
If you're not creating the chances to score, then you could bring in whoever you like as a striker, unless you change the way you're approaching the game to set up chances for that striker to score. Which is why the transfer window is not going to fix everything.
No. Thanks for all your comments regarding the instant reaction that I did. I don't like being angry in front of a camera. I don't do any of this for social media clicks or anything like that. It was just how I felt immediately after the game coming out from there, and I tried to give myself 5 minutes to cool down. Wasn't happening. But there were lots of comments, so it's only fair that we read some of these comments out because, fans are starting to see us as their voice via this podcast. They send their comments in, and, here's some of the comments that, if people want to tell me that there is no perceived disconnect between fans and board, well, here's some of them. Tom Mollett, possibly the worst team, not Luton team, just worst football team I've seen. Even Sunday League teams have more heart and desire. Completely disgusting performance. The club is completely rotten. It's so sad to say. I wouldn't go as far as saying it's the worst Luton team I've seen, Tom. Richard Money's still got that honour, and the Kevin Blackwell one wasn't great, but I think if you put the words pound for pound in there, you probably wouldn't be a great deal sure of the total. Steve Foster, who's a regular commenter on the podcast. Wow, Kev, you always represent perfectly Hatter's feelings after each result. Excitement and elation with a win, disappointment in defeat, frustration in not quite getting a result. Tonight you're rightfully angry with the result, just like I was watching on TV. How you and others travel these distances at these times of day amazes me. Surely it can only get better from now. Let's hope that is the case, Steve. I did say after Saturday I didn't think it could get much worse, but they held my beer and went with it.
Didn't they just?
But that's just, that's a couple of the comments, and, there were quite a few on there. Obviously, I've selected a couple because there's lots of Huddersfield fans gloating on there and things like that. But there is some serious. Well, if I'm being kind, Jimbo, discontent, and if I'm being honest, anger on the terraces.
We've all experienced the last 2 years, and yeah, I think there have been some small highlights this season, but not enough. And that defeat, I guess, was this is the thing, isn't it? You could see it a mile off. From the minute they scored that goal, you can see what this was going to be. And I'm not detracting from anybody's view of that. Your experience is your experience, and it's very deflating. And I mean, I wasn't looking forward to coming here and talking about this, because there's no real answers to it.
Just on what we saw on the pitch last night, going back to the comments on the reaction, Kevin Forsett, you nailed it. No urgency at all. Fortunate goal, but well taken. There was no attempt to stretch them and run them ragged, and stupid fouls that took up valuable time. It's all kids stuff. Absolutely. And John Allen, bang on, Kev. What was that team selection? No striker on the pitch at kickoff. Not even the deep line Wells, playing a false nine in League One. It's beyond ludicrous. It doesn't often work in the Premier League or Champions League, and that's with players who may have a clue how to play it. Absolutely no fight or gumption, embarrassing, and weak in every aspect, as you succinctly put it. We're not the only ones seeing this. People who are paying their money to go and watch this are seeing this style of play at home. We're kind of starting to enjoy it because it's quicker, it's more positive, it's more forward thinking. But as soon as we leave Kenilworth Road, it is slow, it is dismal, it is dire, and it is so hard to watch. And I don't know where Jack goes from here away from home, Jimbo. He's changed the formation last night. It got worse. There are clearly players that he seems to have realised, and I'm assuming this is the case because no one asked anyone about any injuries, that he can't use. Jacob Brown hasn't been used since that pathetic cameo at Exeter, not even been on the bench. Jerry Yates wasn't on the bench last night. Hopefully he's had enough of him. We all know about the Chris Makosso situation. We heard about the Lamine Fane situation. George Saville wasn't on the bench last night as well. Hopefully, slowly but surely, the evidence in front of his eyes is whittling down the players who can be of use to him. But away from home, I just don't know where we go without significant reinforcements.
Well, that's the only thing, isn't it? Because we've tried everything else, and you're getting the same result. I mean, that was worse, though, wasn't it? The manner of that defeat is one of the worst things I've possibly seen. And I don't want to be all in hyperbole about it. The manner of it is like a cherry on top of a lot of problems, really. And I understand that anger of people, 2 successive relegations, stagnation in League One, and that performance will do that to people.
Not just that performance, Jimbo, the 3 away performances we've had in 2026. You go all the way to Exeter, you don't have a shot on target. You go all the way to Plymouth, you get absolutely ruined for 45 minutes, and then you get a couple of shots on target as token gestures almost later on in the game. And then you lose to 10 men, giving the ball away in an area where there is no need to give the ball away. He didn't even need to pass it, Jimbo Anderson. He also had 20 yards in front of him to run into. He can't run. That's quickest I've seen him move was when he got substituted, and thank God for that, because if he'd strolled off, that really would have wound me right up. There are so many players that we've recruited that are of no use to this football team right now, and it is so sad because on the way up, did we get every bit of recruitment right? No. For every James Collins, there was a Jake Jervis. But we got a lot more right than wrong. Now, Gary said was it in my interview or one of the interviews on the content day, that we've got to judge signings once they've left the club. Well, that's absolutely fine to do that. But how can we do that? You don't tell us what the cost was and what the cost is when we sell them. So how can we judge them as a fan base? And the fan base should be able to judge the football club. And Gary should know that more than anybody, because Gary was the founder of the movement that got rid of John Gurney for exactly the same reasons of things being kept from the fan base. It is not a bad thing for fans to know how much players sign for, how long their contracts are, how much they get sold for. If you think that you're giving the opposition a competitive advantage by telling them that, they're beating us anyway. They don't need the competitive advantage, and it isn't one anyway.
I mean, I don't agree with that you can't judge a player till they've left.
No.
That's not. We judge them every game, all the time.
I pay my money to judge.
They judge them in training. That's how they get picked for a team. They get judged constantly. So that no, but the rest of it, yes. And and people are angry, but anger thrives in a vacuum, doesn't it? And so silence only exacerbates that, and that's what we've got. I mean, there's holes in everyone's knowledge. Everyone, even you and I, everyone's knowledge, because we don't hear enough. We don't know the reasons. We don't like those examples you gave. We don't know the transfer fee. We don't know the philosophy. We don't know who's making the decisions. We don't know. And with all of that gap, that vacuum, people fill it with what they want, or their own biases, or their own theories, or their own ideas of what's going on. The truth is, no one knows other than what we're seeing, and that it's not going right. And so there's, people want accountability.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I was on the concourse fairly early last night. Lots of people come up and spoke to me. There was only, 450, 500 Luton fans? I didn't see the exact number. But if you've been to Huddersfield, you know the concourse is pretty big, and it's as soon as you go in the away end before you even get into anywhere near the seats and things. So yeah, lots of you come up to me, as you did at Plymouth. I was down at Plymouth fairly early on too, and I mean, there's the clip doing the rounds, isn't there, of the start of my chat with Gary at the Content Creator Day. I mean, it should be said that clip was 3 months ago. It's not a recent clip or anything like that, where I started it by saying that there's a perceived disconnect between the fans and the board. Well, and Gary shot me down for it, didn't he? Well, no need to shoot me down anymore, Gary, because that perception's not there. It's absolutely real. I can tell you from what I'm hearing around me on the terraces, it is real. And here's where I'm really worried, Jimbo. The strong vibe I get, the reaction I get, fans are losing or don't trust senior figures at this football club to turn this round. And once that situation is paramount, well, I mentioned in the last one, Houston, we've got a problem. We need the sequel to Apollo 13.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I was actually dreading coming on here is, I don't want to wallow in this misery, but we have to. But there are some people out there that think that we are fed lines or controlled, or our opinions and criticisms suppressed by the club. And it couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is we don't hear enough from them. The only time I've spoken to Gary Sweet this season is when Matt Bloomfield was sacked and there was a press conference, and when Jack Wilshere was appointed and there was a press conference. And then I was in the room when you spoke to him on the Content Creator Day, but you did that, and I thought that was right, that you get to voice that from a fan's position, and that's it. We don't hear enough from them. This is what I'm saying. There's this vacuum of communication, accountability, whatever you want, only leads to more suspicion from people, because they fill it with what they think.
Absolutely. And that brings us on to another strong topic of conversation that you guys had with me last night, and that we hear on comments on YouTube and social media. And when I say social media, I'm not talking people who are on social media for clickbait. I'm talking people who I see at games, who I know in person, who have a social media account and contact me in that way. Listen, people are with families, or I'm talking to people. Not everyone wants to come up to me and talk, but transparency is a big thing, Jimbo. I mean, the key thing I keep on hearing all of the time is, we got told we were going to learn from our mistakes at the end of last season. Far too late, but we got told it. Well, what mistakes have we learned from? Because we're currently sat here in a transfer window where I'm seeing exactly the same as the transfer window last year. So that would be one mistake. We don't appear to have learned from any mistakes, but that's not to say that we haven't. Tell us, what are the mistakes that we've learned from? What is in place to show that these issues, such as the transfer window, won't become a thing again? In an interview, Gary mentioned short-term pain while we wait for Power Court. That's 18 months away at minimum. May well be 2.5 seasons away. What are we doing to halt the demise, the slide through the leagues on the pitch whilst we wait for that? No one's expecting us to be back in the Premier League by the time we go to Power Court. But the real fear is that we're going to be in League Two by the time we go to Power Court. Now, what is there that's being done to ensure that that doesn't happen? Because we are on this pole and someone stuck a load of grease on it. We can't get off of it right now.
All questions I'd love to know the answer to. We can't give you those answers.
No, we
That's
can't.
the thing.
And we're appealing to the people at the football club who can. 3 months ago, you came and spoke, or we came down and you spoke to us at the Content Creator Day, which was so well received by the fan base. Not just our content, other people's content. I speak to Deggy all the time, for example, and he had the same reaction as what we did. And all we've been peddled this last week or so since the fan engagement strategy came out is how communication with fans is going to improve. Well, between Jimbo and I, we can put another seat, and we'll happily have Gary on here to answer all of these questions that you guys are asking us that I'm going to continue to ask through this camera for the rest of this podcast because you deserve the answers to them. Let's come on to recruitment, Jimbo. Right now, it's an absolute huge bugbear of Luton fans. When you listen to this, it's going to be the 29th of January. Why are we on the 29th day of a transfer window and we haven't bought anyone? I use the word bought anyone then, as you referenced earlier. We've made 2 loan signings in January. We haven't bought anyone yet. Why are we 5 days away from a 4th successive transfer window closing without a right back and manager trusts, i.e. not Rue Walters, being signed? Where is a dominant defender? A striker? We've just played last night. We've just gone away into a League One game of football. This wasn't the trophy last night. This was a League One game of football against the team above us in the league, and we have played without a recognised striker, which says everything that we need to know. Where is a striker of any note? And yes, okay, that one might be answered by Ali Al-Hamadi and Elijah Adebayo, but who's to say they're going to hit the ground running and give us the 10 or 12 goals that we need? And I also accept that there are rumours doing the rounds that Devante Cole is being looked at, although Jack didn't seem to know too much about that when he was questioned on it yesterday. Why is there a shortage of leaders at this football club right now? Why are, as I mentioned earlier, why are more transfers misses right now than hits when it was the other way around until the summer of 2023? And what are we doing to change that? And also, after the comments last night, Jimbo, a lot of people have got in touch with me to ask, what is Jack's role in recruitment? Because he doesn't seem to suggest that he's got a strong enough role based on those comments last night. Those comments were made in the written word. Sometimes context is important around all sorts of words, and that's why I tend to do my communication via these means, because my words can't be misconstrued or shouldn't be misconstrued because they're on a camera. But Jack did not seem to give off the impression, with the Devante Cole questions and everything else, that he's involved in recruitment as much as we would like him to be.
Yeah, I mean, that point needs further investigation.
Which I'm sure you'll do on Friday.
Yeah. I guess that would be one of the focus. There's lots that is.
But these questions are all questions that people are asking me, Jimbo. I can't answer, but I will happily put a chair in between me and Jimbo if the person who can answer him, and I think it's Gary, and he's been invited onto this podcast with an open invitation ever since we started doing it. And Gary, if you're listening, or someone else who knows you is listening to this, that invitation is still open, because this fan base is getting angry and they need to hear something right now. And I'm hearing all of these comments and questions.
Yeah, well, I mean, he is the CEO, so he's ultimately responsible for the football club. I mean, that's just a fact, isn't it? And, when we've had the 18 months, 2 years that we have had, the scrutiny is going to be there. So it probably needs that. Well, not probably. That's what it needs, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I go back 3 months. Everyone welcomed every interview that was done at the content day. Now, if we need another content day and you don't want to come and sit between me and Jimbo and the podcast, that's fine. If you go out on 3 counties, that's fine. Doesn't have to be me and I do think that it needs to be a fan representative that's asking questions, because it's the fans that are asking you and I these things. But, if it means that it's not on our podcast but it's done elsewhere, that's absolutely fine. But the communication, and this is the final topic of people getting in touch with me, the general vibes are, where has it gone? 3 months since the content day. People would like to be spoken to properly. A familiar phrase that is doing the rounds right now, on the grass. Well, what does that mean? 5 years ago, someone was 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away. Give us some dates. Again, if you're worried about giving a competitive advantage to everyone else, they're beating you anyway. So it don't matter if people know that someone's 2 weeks away or 3 weeks away.
The season's over, as we said, so it doesn't really matter, does it?
What does it mean? Give us some actual, proper, adult answers with regards to that. I don't generally come up with these things, but again, it's people that have asked me questions. Why did 2 board members leave? The Stephen Brown statement in particular didn't really give anything away when you consider he was a founder member of 2020 and served 2 decades for it. Nothing was said. And, you mentioned that Gary's the CEO of the club and runs the club, but what's the short-term, mid-term and long-term plan for 2020? They're getting no younger. We have a chairman in his 70s. We have a chief executive in his 60s. I believe the youngest board member is in his 50s. What is the succession plan? We're in a world where anything can happen to anyone at any given time. What is the succession plan? Now, when we were on the way up, we were right behind 2020, who, for the record, I still think are brilliant owners. And there is a massive, massive, massive case here of be careful what you wish for. Just look at Sheffield Wednesday for those that want 2020 out. But there was a plan to get behind. And when things didn't go necessarily right on the pitch, or we needed a 6-month sabbatical to get things right so that we could go up again, people understood it, because the championship in 2020 was the end goal. Here we are, 2026. What's the end goal for 2030? Yes, we know Power Court's part of it, but what's the end goal on the pitch? You told us that promotion this season is the minimum aim. Well, the minimum aim is about to disappear out of the window. What's the consequence? Who's to blame? Who's going to be held accountable once we fail with this promotion? If you're going to state that that's the minimum aim, there needs to be some accountability. Now, we've changed managers. This is the 3rd manager who's looking disillusioned and running out of ideas, Jimbo. We've changed players. We've had a revolving door of players like you've not seen in this club in the last 2 years. So therefore, people are going to look at the chief executive, aren't they, as the person who hasn't changed? You don't see too many 60-year-old chief executives in big positions these days. Again, I'm not saying that he has to leave or anything like that, but people need to see more activity.
There's evidence very clearly to say he doesn't favour the director of football role, because he has said that. So that's not going to happen. And I think in the BBC interview, they talked about stepping aside, didn't they? And maybe
splitting the roles up,
dealing Power Court and get someone in. And he didn't want to. So that's not changing. That's not opinion. It's an evidence-based view on that situation. But still, people, that's what they want. So how can that change? Talking, conversation. One of the reasons I love podcasts and why we started one, and it's slightly to my chagrin a bit, is because I'm a writer. People, unfortunately, these days will not read a long piece. They won't. I'd love it if you did. More people did, because that's my stock in trade. But
program notes, people won't read a long piece.
Well, that wasn't necessarily.
No, you wasn't. But I'm just using that as a club.
Program notes, a long piece, a long feature article. Most people don't seem to want to read that, but more and more people do want to sit down and listen to a podcast. And over the course of an hour, you can have a really nuanced, detailed conversation that isn't based on, a press conference, bit of soundbite or anything like that. And that's why I think they're so successful. Not this one or anyone, just in general podcasts. it's a great format for that. It would serve it really well. I really appreciated the BBC interview with him because we have so little to go on, but it was still very short. It needs a longer form chat.
Ditto the content day. 10 minutes were all we were given. We weren't going to get answers to any of these questions that you guys have been asking me. I reiterate, this wasn't one person asking me this last night. This is a lot of you asking me these questions over the last 3 away games that I've been to. Many of you ask me them at home games. You email me and all of this sort of thing. We haven't necessarily brought them up on here because we've tried to cover the football matches, but last night's football match just so happens to be every bit as bad as Saturday, and in the recency bias, you don't need to hear it twice in 3 days. So this is the reason why we're bringing this up. I mean, yeah, there needs to be a contingency plan, doesn't there? I mean, whether Gary leaves or whether Gary doesn't leave, Gary isn't going to be the chief executive of this football club forevermore. What is the succession plan? If we miss out on promotion this season, who is accountable for it? One manager already has been accountable for it. I'm not sitting here and saying that the second one needs to be. He needs to stop picking teams like he picked last night. That's absolutely sure. And when a substitution is blatantly obvious right in front of his eyes, he needs to make it. But how many more manager outs are there before we realise that, do you know what, maybe the manager isn't the problem? And Jack, in his disappointment last night, kind of alluded to the fact that the culture is the problem.
Yeah, again, that's another thing that probably needs investigation, because that was a quite important telling statement, I think, because they've always, on the way up, Luton always thrived on this culture element. And if that's not happening now, then we need to find out more about that. So, yeah, again, it's stuff that we can't answer right now.
These aren't questions for you and me to answer, Jimbo.
No.
That is the thing. These aren't questions for you and me to answer. And I reiterate again, the invitation is there for whoever it is at the football club, whoever it is. If I've got the wrong person, then that's absolutely fine. Whoever it is who can answer these questions, come and face us. I've just given you the questions. You can come here with the answers.
They're some, I suppose. Yeah, to that point, silence limits the options for analysis. For you, for me, for fans, for everybody. We aren't able to provide that surety. And there's people with theories all over the place, and they're all over social media. And, while anger is probably justified by the result, anger it's not a plan, is it?
Oh, no, I didn't go to Huddersfield last night.
Something after that.
Yeah, I didn't go to Huddersfield last night thinking, I'm going to do an angry instant reaction. It was just the build-up of what I watched last night. And, sometimes there's only so much of the same nonsense that you can take before you've had enough of it. And it wasn't me. If you heard the noises in the background, that was of Luton fans coming out, venting their frustration. It just so happens I was the one in front of the camera, and if any of them wanted to come in front of the camera, they could have done, because I was going redder and redder and redder, I think, as every passing minute happened. Look, there's lots of questions. The answers will be there. Someone just needs to give them to us. Fans are right to want an interest in this football club. Fans are right to be concerned about where this football club is going, because, as I said a minute ago, 22 years ago, 23 years ago now, we're in 2026, Gary was that fan. So he should know more than anyone that accountability is everything. And I think we need a little bit more, Jimbo. Look, that's enough of that, isn't it? Because we've asked an awful lot of questions there and not really given an awful lot of answers. But, I mean, we should just finish with the transfer window. 5 days of it left. It shuts at 7 p.m. on Monday. All I can do is strongly urge that there are people coming through the door, because if we get to midnight on Monday, because I would imagine that the deals will drip feed afterwards, won't they? If we get to Monday and there hasn't been significant business done both ways, the anger that we're feeling, the anger that is being expressed, will only elevate. We was told in those Boxing Day notes that the transfer window will be used to enhance our promotion possibilities. Well, you and I have given up on promotion since it started, so that hasn't happened.
Well, yeah. And so that the expectation there is that business will be done. And if it's not done, it feels like that it's been neglected. We're mid-table. Don't look like we're going to be anything up mid-table. We're closer to relegation, and I understand that there's some bit of argument about that. But let's deal with the fact that we're currently mid-table with aspirations of higher. What we're seeing so far doesn't lead us to believe that they will get any higher, because we keep getting to the precipice of the playoffs, and then we blow it. Now we're 6 points back from Huddersfield.
7 really, because they've got the goal difference.
Yeah. And so that's an even bigger mountain to climb. The only possible way, I believe, is to change it up with some new personnel, fresh impetus, some fresh ideas. And without that, you're left scratching your head. And, regardless of whether we think the season's over, which I do, there is an opportunity now to build towards the next one.
Absolutely. You and I can think that the season's over, but if they're being judged on promotion as a minimum and enhancing our promotion chances in this transfer window, they can't assume that the season's over. They've got to go for it. Or they believe that what we've got get promoted. Well, newsflash. Can't win away from home. Let's be fair. This team hasn't been able to win away from home since September 2024. What is it? I've not gone through the stats, but it can't be many more than half a dozen away wins. Because we had that run last year that went on and on and on and on and on and on to the point that we celebrated a point somewhere along the line. Sheffield Wednesday, we celebrated a point like it was the coming of the new Messiah. This team hasn't been able to win away for far too long. And that tells me that what Jack hinted last night, and I'm sure he's going to regret saying that about the culture, even though I think he's right, that tells me that there is a cultural problem. You can't go 18 months, or what would it be, 16 months, losing nearly every away game you play, with there not being a problem somewhere along the line. And it's not the managers, it's the third one that's embarked on this run. For all that he still didn't cover himself in glory last night.
Well, that's a reasonable assumption to make, isn't it, based on the evidence? You keep changing various elements and you get virtually the same thing.
Got to change a different element, haven't you, really? Yeah. Ultimately. Yeah. Well done to Rose Grace 9199, David Coop, and Sam H 568, and this guy to my right, who all said 1-0 to Huddersfield in their score predictions. I'll be honest, I've had a busy day today. I've not been able to get the leaderboard up to date. I've spent far too much time of this week on the motorways of this country. So we will get the leaderboard up after the Blackpool game. So apologies for that.
I mean, that's fair enough, isn't it?
I think so.
I did get it right. Let me just take some joy about getting something right. It's only small joy.
It is indeed. Yep. Well done to you guys. You will get 3 points once I've updated the leaderboard and things like that. Listen, things aren't going great away from home right now. Here's some crumb of comfort. They're going much better at home. And, we've got 2 home games to come. Let's not worry about who we've got in the next away game. We'll deal with that way down the line. That's a fortnight away. We have got a home game against Blackpool on Saturday, 3 p.m, Kenilworth Road. If you haven't got a ticket to this game, well, you're not going to be able to watch it if you're in the UK because it's not on UK TV. I will, of course, do an instant reaction, and I hope it's a great deal more comfortable than the one that I did last night. Blackpool Jimbo. Desmond at their place stunk the gaff out 75 minutes, rescued it with the last 15. Gideon Codger's penalty in injury time. Do you want the good bits of this Blackpool side or the bad bits of this Blackpool side?
You may as well hit me with what you got.
Well, they've got the 3rd top scorer in the league.
Don't hit me with what you got then.
You asked for it straight. I gave it to you straight. Ashley Fletcher is the 3rd top scorer in the league, centre forward. Tolaj-like, really, puts himself about.
Say that.
He's not that good, obviously, but puts himself about, and clearly with 12 goals already this season, knows where the back of the net is.
Yeah. Be nice to have one of those, isn't it?
Oh, would it? Would it?
Yeah, I mean, perhaps we've already gone over this, but yeah, to be in the 29th day of the transfer window without a striker, that's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Well, it is, and it isn't, isn't it? Because the last press conference you were at, Jack seemed to make it perfectly clear that the eggs had gone in the basket of Al Hamadi and Elijah. Now, we should be talking about Al Hamadi's 20-minute cameo last night. It was bright, but it wasn't brilliant. But it was
It's not
better.
the story, though, is it? That's
No,
the thing.
exactly.
That's the thing.
You know, and you guys have asked enough of these questions that we thought that we had to bring them out to you. But yeah, exactly. And now there were rumours, weren't there, as we were heading to Huddersfield last night, that Devante Cole is on our radar. Sky Sports journalist put that on the Sky Sports transfer blog. If Sky isn't a reputable source, who is? But it is only a Sky journalist. So usually when there's some serious action, it's reported at both ends. And then I think I saw on Football League Weekly today that Jake Beasley is another target for us, and Bradford, I would have him tomorrow, by the way. I really like him.
Is he the chap that you picked out?
No,
you picked out another.
Webster there, yeah. He's just had
Webster and Beasley.
He's just had an ankle operation, unfortunately, Webster, so we might need to revisit that at another time. But Beasley, the striker, puts himself about, physical, 6'2", 6'3", knows where the back of the net is, scored against Lincoln on Thursday night. Yeah, really good. Really, really good. Everything that we haven't got.
I mean, it sounds good. I think we're kind of in a catch-22 situation where people want almost big money spent on players, a la Birmingham, which is never going to happen. When the old philosophy of Luton was to buy these young, hungry players, sometimes from divisions below, sometimes from the same division. Elijah, for instance, came from Walsall, didn't he? But I think if they do that, people complain.
Yeah, but that's the byproduct of the situation.
I think we're in a situation where people are not going to be happy either way. But if he scored that many goals, if he is a presence, then that might be one solution, only one, to why we're crossing so many balls into the box and nobody's there.
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I don't care how much they spend. We just need to have different to what we've got.
And they have spent big money, or will spend big money. The Al Hamadi deal, if we keep with him, and you have to assume they are going to, because he stayed here and didn't go back to Ipswich when he got injured after playing for Iraq, is reported to be around 3 million, isn't it? Well, that's big money for this division.
Yeah. Although whether we have to get promoted for that deal to happen or not, I don't know. I mean, I'd be surprised if a guy's gone from the Premier League to being a League One player so quickly. Yeah, we just need different, Jimbo. We need that different striker. We need that dominant defender. We need a right back. We need a physical presence in the centre of the park, and we'll come on to who it should be in a moment. I'll just finish up with Blackpool. Obviously, it was CJ Hamilton who killed us at their place when he played wide left that night. Played right wing back according to Flash Scores yesterday. I've seen no highlights. I've had no time to see any highlights, but that's a right change, isn't it? Left wing to right wing back. I mean, we've done that with Izzy Jones, to be fair.
It will be a bit of a relief, really, because he did cause us numerous problems up at Bloomfield Road. But then again, we're not immune to fullbacks, wing-backs scoring. You just have to look to Brendan Galloway at Plymouth recently.
And we're not immune to wingers scoring, Jimbo, so Josh Bowler has already given me nightmares because he's got a proper point to prove.
Well, that would be just the nightmare of the transfer window come back to haunt us, really, wouldn't it? That would just really seal the deal if we haven't managed to get anyone in, which we probably won't by the time that they come. I said all along that I expect if anything happens, it'll be transfer deadline day. And you laid out a very good case as to why it should not be that. It should be done, very early. And I think increasingly that's looking like a good assumption that hasn't come true.
4 points from 15 in January. That's 11 points we've tossed to the washing because we haven't signed anyone. Positives then, Jimbo. Blackpool arrive with 5 defeats in their last 6. They're an out-of-confidence side. The last low-on-confidence side that come to Kenilworth Road probably would have been Leyton Orient, and they got dispatched ruthlessly. We need a repeat.
We need a repeat of the last 2 home performances. Well, certainly the Lincoln performance, minus the goals, ideally. Don't want to give anyone a head start like we already have.
Oh, if they score first on
Blackpool.
Saturday, based on what we said in the last half an hour of the podcast, if they score first on Saturday, tin hat time.
Well, yeah, but that's the team talk, isn't it? If you're Blackpool, the team talk is right. Keep it tight, frustrate this lot. They're gonna turn really quickly. You can see it written a mile off.
Yeah, you can, yeah. 3 wins, 1 draw in 13 away games, Blackpool. They are not good travellers. Listen, I've said it a few times on this podcast, and I don't say it through arrogance or anything like that. But if Luton are to achieve any of their aims that have been put out to us this season, then Blackpool at home is simply a must-win game. It's not a game we often win at home, but it's a game that we have to win on this occasion. In fact, we have to win all 9 home games realistically, and, we don't think that that's going to happen, but that is the kind of situation that we're in, Jibbo. A team that comes here with 5 defeats in its last 6 has to leave with 6 defeats in its last 7.
Yeah, simply put. I mean, there's no excuses. Regardless of whether I currently think that the season is over, the only way you're going to improve things is to start winning games.
Yeah, I mean, the only way that the season resurrects itself is you take 6 points from Blackpool and Bradford. Then we need a prayer for 4 away games in 5 after that at the end of February, where you can hear it now, can't we? Minutes this and resting players there and here, there and everywhere, but let's sort out the bit that is going well, the home form, the 2 wins, and go from there. And Bradford are fading, and they're fading fast. So it might be that by the time they come here, we can get hold of them, and they're the ones to latch onto, give us a crumb of comfort. Again, we'll deal with that nearer the time. But yeah, this Blackpool side should set up perfectly well for us. We faced Ian Evatt as a manager when he was at Bolton in that cup tie. That we didn't make a particularly great fist of it at home, but we comfortably saw them off away from home. He played a back 3 on Tuesday night. So we have the artillery to deal with that. And this was my biggest annoyance Tuesday. We knew Huddersfield were going to have a back 3. Liam Manning hasn't taken charge of a professional game of football without a back 3 that I've followed him. Where was Shaden Morris from the start?
Well, yeah, particularly as we actually exploited it a few times in the first half. Again, we forget about this because it's not the story, but we did. We got through with some very incisive balls, a couple of really good ones from Walsh to Bramall, and made that count in the way that you said it would count, because they had the 3 centre backs with the gaps on the sides, and we did that. But obviously they make it count, but that is a way to play against that system.
And then when he did come on, Shaden Morris, he went past the left back at will. 3 times the left back tried to grab him, foul him, nudge him, and 3 times he got past him and still put a ball in the box. And if he'd gone down on all 3 occasions, we'd have got a free kick. But credit to Morris, he wanted to stay on his feet and try and make something happen. And there was one cross that he put across 3 or 4 yards out that was just absolutely begging. It was being screened from the hilltops in Huddersfield for someone to stick it in the back of the net. 3 people was there or thereabouts, and it just did not go in the back of the net. And you're like, someone gambled. This guy, if you have not worked out yet that when Shaden Morris, when they finally get the ball in front of him, and that's proving an issue, let me tell you, but when they finally get the ball in front of him, and you're right, a lot of the time it was the pass inside the fullback for him to run onto. When it's in front of him, everybody within vicinity of that penalty area has to get on their bike, stick it into 5th gear, and make sure they're in that penalty box, because the defender ain't coming back to him. There ain't a defender in this league that's coming back to him once he's past them.
Nope. No.
You've got no excuse. You can have all the excuses you like as a striker that, I'm not getting the chances. But you have no excuse when he has beaten his fullback not to be where that ball's going.
Yeah, well, it makes it all the more baffling because the same for when Bramall goes on the outside and gets a cross in. He gets in numerous and there's nobody in there. I mean, yesterday there was a cross. Was it from Clark?
Yeah.
Absolutely no one in the middle. Absolutely.
And
Where
Richards,
a
the other
striker should
side,
be.
that got blocked out for a corner in that first half as well. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's where we need Al Hamady to come good, I guess. There has to be team changes. You cannot perform like that and then not be team changes. Now, I think we all know that Cal Naismith's going to walk into this side on Saturday. I suspect he's going to walk in for Anderson. It's the lesser of two evils, if I'm being honest. Mengi will go to the right-hand side of him. That's one change. This team needs Lamine Fane. And I'll tell you why he needs Lamine Fane, Jimbo. Since we put that Fane and Walsh partnership together at Reading first time, here are the results that we've had since that. So when Fane started the game, we lost 3-2 at Reading. Not on him, 3 defensive absolute howlers. We beat Wickham, we beat Leyton Orient, and we beat Stevenage. We've played 4 games in that time where Fane hasn't started, and the results have been 1-0 defeat to Exeter, 2-2 draw with Lincoln, 1-0 defeat with Plymouth, and 1-0 defeat to Huddersfield. 3 wins and a draw when he started. 3 wins and a defeat when he started. Again, the defeats 3 defensive cock-ups. 1 draw and 3 defeats when he hasn't started. If that's not enough information, I don't know what is. Now, he might well have cheesed you off, Jack, but you're cutting off your nose to spite your face by not playing him.
Yeah. I hope, he's been in the squad now and he came on against Huddersfield. I think you're right. He's got to start. We don't have really that many options as well, which is...
No, I mean, I liked Casey Palmer deeper. I did. Because he did what Fanny does. He picks the ball up and he drives with it. He doesn't just offload it like some of the players that we have in this side. He actually commits men. Obviously, he committed Alfie May and, we saw where it got us. But then after the sending off, he was prepared to play intricate passes. He was a little bit further forward. He was the one person who did enhance their position after the sending off. He played intricate passes. Now, obviously, he played intricate passes to Jordan Clark, who cannot play this game of football with his back to goal. That has been proven last night. I think it was proven before then anyway. Had he have played them intricate passes into, funnily enough, Nakeem Wells, I think we'd have had an awful lot more joy in the situation. But the problem is, there's no physicality. Now, I don't think Blackpool and an Ian Evatt side are coming down here and lacking physicality. I haven't watched Blackpool since we went up there, and it wasn't Ian Evatt who was in charge when we went up there. It was Steve Bruce. But I would refuse to believe that an Ian Evatt side, seeing what he did at Bolton, bringing them through League Two and, twice I think they failed in the playoffs under him in this division. I refuse to believe that they're coming with a lack of physicality. We need Lamine Fane on this pitch. Now, if that means that one of Jordan Clark or Casey Palmer can't play, so be it, and you've got to pick which one's best, Jack, and leave the other one out.
Well, yeah, there's 2 things there for me. Is that another possible way that you can go about this if you're an opposition team, other than saying get the crowd annoyed, is just to be physical. Because we've seen against Plymouth, we've seen against Huddersfield, we've seen it too many times this season when a physical side challenges this one, or the team that was out anyway against Huddersfield, they struggle. And Fanny would help with that. So yeah, get him in the side.
Yeah, look, we've got too many options further forward in those 3 behind the striker, haven't we? For comfort, really. We've got Bramall, we've got Kodjia, we've got Clark, we've got Palmer, we've got Richards, we've got Morris, and I've probably missed someone in amongst all of that as well. There's so many options. We can only pick 3 of them. Now for me, from what I've seen, I've got to be honest, I'm not overly convinced that Bramwell's... so yeah, of course I've missed one. I've missed Lawrence. The last couple of games, Bramall hasn't looked like Bramall. Now, I don't know if it is just rust or if there's something else. If his nose was put out of joint by having Lawrence replace him in the Stevenage game or whatever it was, I don't know. But the Cohen Bramall that went into the new year isn't the Cohen Bramall I've seen in the new year. So I would probably leave him out, and I would probably go. Clark's played every minute of the 2 games. Suddenly, Kodja, Palmer, Morris then would be my 3 behind the striker, and he is a striker. None of this false 9 nonsense.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I said 2 things, didn't I? And I didn't say the second thing. The second thing is that you've mentioned already this month that eventually we're going to have to set a succession plan for what we're going to do post Jordan Clark. I mean, he's played everywhere but goal, really.
I mean, to be fair, the way the others are playing, that succession plan's getting further and further away, isn't it? But
it is, yeah. But that would be another reason why I'd go for that lineup that you just mentioned there. Is another reason.
The other thing we can do on Saturday, everyone wear dreadlock wigs. Ban these players from the barbers until the end of the season, Jimbo. Get that hair as long as possible. My hair isn't. I've pulled it out since last night, if you've realised. Get their hair as long as possible. This might be our only way in.
Why not? Why not? We've tried everything else.
Got to think outside the box when things ain't going well, Jimbo.
Get a job lot and flog them in the shop.
Absolutely. You know, don't worry about signing players. Sign some hair extensions,
job
and
job lot of wigs. Sell them in the shop.
We might be all right. Of course, I'm jesting. Wells the striker. Don't think Al Hamadi's fit to start, is he? He's only done 20 minutes in. When was that international break? November. I'd be very surprised if he's got any more than 45 in him here.
Yeah, me too. I think the need to get him in to immediately hit the ground running is greatly diminished now, considering we're not playing for anything, are we? I mean, mathematically we are, but realistically, no. So it'd be wise to build him up gradually. But that doesn't mean he couldn't play
half an hour
at the end. Yeah, we'll see. But I would like to see him, and I've no idea, no context of what he's like, really. None at all.
No, you and me both. Literally, all I can tell you is he's not a left winger from that half an hour against Forest Green. Rest of it, I don't know. He's not as tall as I thought he was. Oh, unless, I mean, I was up in the gods last night. He might be tall, and I was just looking down on lemons, but I don't think he's as tall. That's why I'd be all over Beasley like a shot. I know for a fact he's tall because he nearly scored at Burton and right in front of me, and I thought, cool. And again, it happened again last night, didn't it? We had mismatches in height from set pieces.
The only trouble is if you're searching and hunting for a striker, and you're telling them how we play, and if that way we play is how we currently play, there's only room for one of them, isn't there? And are you going to want to come to a team where you have to challenge for that one spot? Do you look at what they've currently got in the ranks and go, well, yeah, I caveat this. I know that most fans aren't sold by this, but Jerry Yates was Derby's top goal scorer, can't get inside. And you go, well, what hope is there for me?
Well, on the Beasley situation, and I guess to an extent, Devante Cole as well, they're both in teams that may well be relegated this season. Certainly Port Vale are. They're gone, aren't they? Yeah, if they're letting Curtis go to Plymouth, then they're obviously preparing for League Two football next season. I think we think Luton are going to be in League One next season. So it's an avenue to stay in League One, isn't it? I would imagine we pay more than Burton, Port Vale. Don't know the situation. Again, we're not told, but I would imagine that that's the case. So there are 2 reasons why you'd come to Luton. You're right. You're not a guaranteed starter, although if either are worse than what output-wise than what we've got. But you're right to say what you say about Jerry Yates. He did score goals for Derby, and last time in this division for Blackpool, he scored loads of them. Maybe they want him back on Saturday. Huddersfield fans seem to want Nakeem Wells back.
It's not a great case for keeping many of the players, is there, really?
No.
There just isn't.
And therein lies the issues that we discussed earlier with regards to how recruitment's changed. Yeah, that's how I see us lining up. I fully expect Wells to be the centre forward again. And I hope, to be quite honest with you, I hope he is, because I hope I don't see Jordan Clark in that false 9 role again. Because, I mean, there's half-price booze from half 1 till half 2. I might have to stock up at 2:29 if I've seen the team sheet at 2:45, Jimbo. We'll make sure I've got enough to last me until 5:00.
They're going to have to do very well not to rile significant portions of that crowd, really. And that team sheet is going to be a big touch point, isn't it?
It is a touch point, and that's why I think Morris needs to be on there, because he is someone who genuinely excites people right now. And as we've kind of alluded to, they're playing wing backs. There's going to be an awful lot of spacing behind their wing backs. So let's hope that's the case. And we have to make a fast start here. We really do. We have to make a fast start. I mean, the crowd will turn. They just will. I'm not encouraging it. I really hope that we get behind the players from start to finish. But I've just alluded to the anger that's in the fan base. And if we've got no more new signings by Saturday, and I think you and I suspect there won't be, and we go a goal down to a side who are, I forgot to check their league position, but they're not very high, it all constitutes a melting pot of not being very pleasant if we don't start this game well. Now, if we start this game okay and we're done up by a referee's decision, that's different. But if we don't start it well, if we start it like we did against Stevenage and they score, yeah, I'm not sure Kenilworth Road is going to be the most pleasant place to be.
No, and I don't say that with any relish. I don't like to be there.
No, I don't either.
I don't like to be there when it's hostile. I like to be there when it's hostile to the other team, but it's been a long, long time since that's been the case. And I think obviously,
Well, that Stevenage game wasn't it?
Yes.
No, that's because of the referee.
Yes, and it kind of felt like the old days a little bit. But I mean, Jack Wilshere's already alluded to it. His team are going to have to go into that ground knowing that supporters are angry. Again, I'm with you. I wouldn't encourage that, but it's a reality.
It is. Yep. Yeah, and I know, again, if we can get behind these boys and they give us something, look, they're going to have to give us something to get behind. That's just the reality of the situation. It's not a two-way thing. I think it is they've got to give us something to get behind. Let's hope that they do. That brings us on to score predictions, Jimbo. At which point it brings us on to your ditty. And, well, let's play it.
Jimbo, master of reverse psychology.
People want longer than that, but they're not getting longer than that.
Well, I did put it in the show notes if you really want to listen to the whole thing. It's a 3-minute song, so I think every time you wait for my reverse psychology score prediction, I put a 3-minute song between that. I'm guessing you might get a bit bored of it, so I leave you wanting more of just a little snippet. But I think I might just be a broken record for the rest of the season, and my reverse psychology for the win is going to be a 1-0 to them.
Why change the habit of a lifetime, my friend? For all of this has been doom and gloom, this podcast, we are Jekyll and Hyde. We're good at home. We're atrocious away. We're at home here. We're playing against a out of confident opponent, an opponent that hasn't won many matches. I do think we win this game. By hook or by crook, we might have to battle. I would imagine that confidence is going to be down on our side as well. We win this 2-1. 2-1 to the Town.
Well, please let your one be true for once and not mine.
Yes, because it will put me back above you on our own personal leaderboard, of which you are 10-8 in front.
It's a crying shame you've been on the road all this week and you can't put that scoreline up there, because I'm pretty sure I'm ahead of you now.
What's not in print is not true, mate. That's how it is. Get your score predictions into us, and we've given you a bit longer to do that this time because we've just done the one podcast this week. We will review the Blackpool game on the normal time. That will be out to you on Monday morning. And then Jimbo and myself, if there is any significant works done on the transfer window, we'll jump on Zoom on Monday so that we're not messing about with these guys, and we'll get some sort of reaction out to you as soon as we can after the transfer window closes. I'll give Jimbo a little bit of time to do all of the necessaries on the Lutonian website and things. So probably would be Tuesday morning if that comes out. I think that's a fair one. And then obviously we'll have a preview of the Bradford game out later in the week. But if you subscribe to the channel, or however it is that you get this podcast, you'll find out exactly when all of our content over what is going to be a busy week drops.
Yeah, please do that. It just makes it easier for us, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Yep. One more notice about music weeks.
Yes, as I alluded to in the last podcast, independent venue week has started already at the castle, and that's every single night this week until Sunday. My vandalism begins at home collective. We're putting a night on Thursday, so if you want to come to that, please do. I'll see you down the front, and mine's a pint of Murphy's if you're asking. When I told you about that in the last one, I was talking about independent grassroots music venues, and I mentioned the Bear Club, and it's remiss of me, totally remiss, to tell you that the place we are currently in, Marsh House, is also a grassroots live music venue. And I can tell you that why, because on Friday they have also got a gig, £5 entry. It's a country and pop night. So if you like that stuff, and if you're in this area, and if you're not further afield, come to that as well and support Marsh House, because the people here are absolutely ace.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can support that here, then we would be really, really grateful, because we love being here, and we're so grateful to the guys for having us. All of the folks at Marsh House, actually, the new home of the podcast. We're also grateful to Sean Grant and the Wolfgang for our intro music. That is it for this episode of the podcast. Slightly longer than what we normally like to put out to you. It is a combined podcast this time, and of course, there are many issues that we've discussed in this that we wouldn't normally or haven't normally discussed, but we feel that now is the right time to discuss them, and we hope that you're all okay with that. Until next time, which will be a review of the Blackpool game, which we hope will get us back to winning ways. From Jimbo and myself, 3 points is a must on Saturday, Town. Come on, get back to winning ways, please.